Hey everyone. Thanks for joining us for the next session of our Get Certified series, PL-300, Manage and Secure Power BI. My name is Anna. I'm an event planner for Reactor, joining you from Redmond, Washington. Before we start, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional, and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping helpful links and checking for questions for our moderators to answer. Our session is being recorded. It will be available to view on demand right here on the Microsoft Reactor channel. With that, I'd love to introduce our speakers for today. Johan and Marcus, thank you so much for joining.
Hey there, thank you, Anna. Welcome to this episode number 4 of Get Certified. So we will today be focusing on the administration and securing of Power BI. We'll do a bit of a cover up the basics so that we get up to speed, and then we'll dive into the 4th section of the content. So, hi everyone. Hope you have a nice day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Just say hi in the chat, and me and Marcus are here in Europe, so welcome to you all. My name is Johan. I'm a Norwegian Microsoft Data Platform MVP, and you see my contact details underneath here.
Yeah, my name is Marcus. I'm also an MVP based in Austria, slightly north of Johan, so it might be a little bit hotter days for me than for Johan, I guess, right? So we're hitting like 35 Celsius today. I think our nights are as cool as your days are, maybe.
Yeah, I think I'm like 22 degrees now today, so
okay.
Not too bad.
Very good. Yeah, we also need to mention that we have moderators. We're very thankful that Olaide and Sahir, I never met them in person, so we have to find an occasion that we can finally meet. They are our moderators, so keep up your questions and everything in the YouTube chat, and those two will make sure that you get your answers and provide you with links and everything else to support this 60 minutes of webinar.
Yeah, this is live right now. I mean, 2nd of July. So if you see it later on, you can of course not comment. But if you are live with us now, post your questions in the chat. This is live and interactive, so feel free. Me and Marcus will not see the comments, but the moderators are there for you.
Yeah, and then there's a black slide for some reason, and there's have you seen
that?
Did
you see that? I think
yeah.
it's Henry.
What was that? What was that?
That's
it's
Henry,
coming in.
I think. Yeah.
Henry Owl, right?
Yeah.
Henry Owl. Henry, what's up, Henry? Henry. Oh, there's a letter. Shall we open the letter, Johan?
Yep.
Yeah.
Do that.
Let's open the letter. That's fun. Okay, so there's a Power BI party because Power BI becomes 10 years. I mean, it's amazing, right? For me, Power BI desktop still feels really young and fresh and crisp, but it's 10 years in July. So there's, of course, a celebration. So make sure that you type in as known as MS Power BI PBI 10 or scan the QR code that you get to the list of all the nice things Microsoft has prepared in quotation to the birthday party and this celebration. There's, I think there's like a contest, there's prizes, there's live sessions, there's also discounts. We'll mention this, right? So there's a lot of things. Make sure to click on this QR code, and then we have right. The
10 years. I mean, I feel old. I still remember trying to sell this back in when it was brand new. So
yeah. I mean, to be honest, when I heard that like we had Excel, ProClarity, Power Performance Point Services, what was there else, right? There was
Power View, Power Map.
Yes, Power Map. And I thought when they came up with a new tool like Power BI Data, I thought, oh my God, we already have so many tools. Why would you come up with a new tool? Please decide on the existing tools. But I was wrong. I really love that they took the chance to begin like from scratch, building a new tool from scratch. I think this was really helpful, as you now can see. Very cool. There's also an exam discount, right?
Yep, there's an exam discount. So just scan the QR codes and get your 50% discount. It also applies to the DP600 and DP700 exams for Fabric. But we're in Power BI mode now, so let's ignore the other things.
Exactly.
Yeah. But it's a rolling thing. It's they hand out the certificate, the discounts every week, I think, going forward.
Okay, there's a limitation per week.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
I don't know the number, but there's a specific number for the whole period, but they roll out like 1,000 every week or something.
Yeah, so every week there's a new chance to get some discount. That's
Yeah.
very good. That's very good. Okay, there's also a data whiz contest which already started a couple of days, like in June 24th, and it's still going up to 2 weeks, right? So
Yep,
make
2
sure
weeks from now.
to get everything to know about this contest, and there's nice prizes to see. There was a live session to kick this off, and this should be available on the Reactor page. So also like this, if you can only like chime in and chime out again, you can rewatch the whole session on the Reactor YouTube channel, and there also will find the Data Wiz contest kickoff session.
Yep.
Okay, now here we go.
Reminder for FabCon Vienna. So it's the second European FabCon. I will unfortunately not be able to make it there, but I mean, you're from Austria, so you're probably going,
Yes,
aren't you?
of course, I will be there. I have to be there, right? So when I was in Stockholm last year, when they announced Vienna, I was like really surprised. Wow, this is like very close to where I live. So this is like, I think this is also an English saying. So if the hill doesn't come to the prophet, or the prophet doesn't come to the hill comes to prophet. That's like the FabCon coming to me, right? That's very good, very much appreciated. Yeah. So hope to see you all there. And if you're there, make sure to attend the community booth. Most of the time you will find me there, I guess, and talk to me, right? Let me know what you thought about this session today, for example. And what's your experience with the PL-300 exam, or how it went, or what's the things you're struggling with, and we can talk about that as well. Yeah, this is a whole series. Just to remember, this series started like a month ago, 4 weeks ago, with preparing and data usage in Power BI, then modeling data in Power BI, visualize and analyze data in Power BI. Today, with this session, we talk about manage and secure Power BI, and there will be one last one next week. So the live session will be in 7 days about the exam preparation and the Q&A. If you have any things you're not very confident about or whatever, then take the chance to use this live Q&A to get answers to your questions. And in case your Spanish or Portuguese language skills are better than your English skills, there's also a series available in Spanish and Portuguese.
Yep.
Exactly. And this, so if you're watching this live, this should be on demand on YouTube about like in 24 hours, at least latest at 48 hours. You can rewatch it there again. Let's get started.
Yeah, let's dive into this. So we'll cover a couple of things today. First, we'll start off with a quick overview of the exam and how Power BI fits into the broader data ecosystem. And then we'll dive into the core focus on this session, which is to create and manage workspaces and assets. That's, I mean, everything from publishing reports to building dashboards and distributing content efficiently. And then we will look at securing and governing the Power BI items. So permissions, row level security, how to protect sensitive data, and so forth. And finally, we'll also share some practical tips for success, both for exams, but also getting this into the real life scenarios.
Yeah. So lucky enough, this all the skills are also necessary for real life things. It's not just preparing for the exam, right? But it's also useful in real life scenarios. Yeah. So what we have meant about the PL-300, that means the exam covers 4 topics, 4 pillows, and if you read those things here, preparing data, modeling data, visualize data, manage and secure Power BI, this fits exactly to the 4 sessions. So 3 sessions were already recorded, and today the topic is manage and secure Power BI, which covers about 15-20%. On another slide, I've seen like 20 to 25%, but it means you cannot really skip one of the 4 pillars. You have to be prepared for all of them. And there might be variations where they emphasize one or more in a specific exam, but you should become very well prepared. As you can see here, like a quarter worth of points go for each of the pillars. And then let's dive in.
Yeah.
Right?
So if I can ask Anna to switch to my screen. And we should be good soon. There we are, I hope. So in this section, we will focus on how to manage the Power BI environments. So again, where everything lives, workspaces, dashboards, reports, and apps. We'll lay the foundation by creating a Power BI workspace, permissions and settings, and then we will configure and update an app, and package and share that content efficiently. And then you think about managing the content lifecycle, so by the publishing, importing, and updating, designing and distributing the insights, and making sure that the trust and reliability are there. So as you can see here, creating and configuring a workspace. The workspace in itself, it's the core in Power BI. So that's the collaborative container for Power BI content. You can organize your semantic models, reports, dashboard, and apps, assign roles, choose between what kind of capacity that you're running, and configure settings for access and storage and sharing. And let us just take a closer look at that into a Power BI setting so we can see it. So first of all, make sure that you are in the Power BI mode. This is some of the content, both for exam and the screens that are in the slide deck, are slightly outdated because, again, Power BI and Fabric and everything changes so frequently, it's hard to keep up. But also because the PL-300 was made before Fabric really was a thing. So we have this navigation button between Fabric and Power BI, but workspaces are still the same. So if I wanted to create a new workspace, I can take that as Marcus's workspace. What is new now is that you can assign a domain to this. If you have, the domains are logical containers of workspaces, so you can have one or more workspaces in the domain. You can search on the domain as well, and that also introduces a domain admin level that then can manage all the workspaces in the domain. I mean, in this case, I have a wishlist domain. You can upload an image if you want, and then there are advanced. Adding the owner of the workspace allows you to get warnings when people are applying for permission to join and so forth. Then you have your license modes. Pro is the basic to develop and deploy models. Trial is, of course, something available to you because of Fabric, where you get the trial capacity available, up to a certain number of trials per tenant. Then you have premium per user. Premium capacity is not available anymore. I'm not 100% sure if it says premium in the exam, but what has been taking over for the premium capacities are the Fabric capacities. And an F64 is the same as a P1 premium. But then, yes, Pro, premium per user, and Fabric capacity or premium. Then you have the small semantic model storage format or the large one. You can choose between them. And then you have something called template apps. And if you're a Microsoft partner and you've developed a really cool Power BI template, you can publish an app to the marketplace for Power BI, which then allows other people to consume that and build their own reports on top of whatever you've designed. Clicking apply will then create the workspace for you. Then we can go and manage access. So I can grant more people access here. Say, I have someone call that. No. No, didn't say anything. Oh, of course not, because I was on the wrong place.
I make the same mistake all the time.
Yeah. It's
Right.
I
Just
don't know
looking up.
why they do that, but they do.
Yeah.
So they should have taken it here.
Yeah.
I added viewer. We have admin, member, contributor, and viewer. I'll get back to those in a bit. And then we can close that. I can also go into the workspace settings. Upload images if I want. So this one, for instance, nice little logo there. Descriptions, workspace content, OneDrive if we have anything of that. Then there's the license info. Again, just repeats over whatever we chose when we started it. But it also means you can migrate over from a premium per user or from a pro to a fabric capacity or back again. If you need to have any Azure connections, Git integrations is only available for premium per user or fabric capacities, not for pro. You can also assign workspace identities and some network security features. And then you have more of the general restrictions, granular access for data connections, and I'll get back to that in a bit as well. And that's how you do it. It's quite easy and to get that up and running. So let's see. Let's go back to the slides again. So once that workspace is set up, the next step is, of course, to manage the content inside of it. So typically we'll sit in Power BI desktop, develop your reports, and then publish them together with the data sets or the semantic models directly to the workspace. And then sometimes you will start off with a dev workspace. Sometimes you will push everything into a common workspace and then push or publish it into production by using apps. Depends on the way you're working in your organization. But it's a common workflow to publish things from your Power BI desktop into a set of workspaces and then move them through. You can also, of course, import content. You can like Excel or Power BI artifacts, or update existing items as your data and visuals evolve. It is also important to understand that you can manage permissions on an item level. So you have both workspace and item level permissions, and we'll cover them a bit later on. But it's important to know that there are two ways of handling things for granular control. So for the exam, it is important to know how to publish, how to import, how to update content, how the permissions work on both the workspace and item levels. In the real world, of course, mastering these skills ensures that your Power BI environment stays clean, secure, and is easier to navigate for the team. Of course, the more workspaces you have, the more harder it is to navigate, and then we'll come into some other features that you can use on this. And of course, adding domains will, of course, help you to make it easier to navigate. Restricting the number of workspaces or making them more logical to browse is naming conventions are also ways to do this. Right, over to you, Marcus.
Yeah, can you switch back, Anna, to my screen? So now we have reports, or we have a workspace now, right? And also you have maybe published a report. Then the question is, how can we distribute the report so people who shall have access to the data and analyze the data can use it without the need to install Power BI Desktop on their own premises, right, on their own laptop. And this is what the workspaces are for. So in these workspaces, we can share reports, we can create dashboards. Be careful with that word, because dashboard is also used like for fancy screen information on screens, right? But there's an artifact, a thing in Power BI service, which is called a dashboard, which you can create in the Power BI service. And then you can also have an app. Again, I don't really like the name, to be honest, here, because like an application app is something I think this is something on my phone. And there's also something called Power App, but now we're talking about a Power BI app. So be be sure that you can distinguish those terms, because you might think you know something, but suddenly it's a different thing. So we can publish reports within a workspace to a Power BI app. That's what this publish apps for broad access is referring to. You can also embed the content to other platforms. So you can get a link or add something to your SharePoint or Teams or custom application. This is really cool if you have some application and you want to show the data within the application. Then there's no need that you need some developer who creates fancy screens and fancy charts and so on. You can just use Power BI for that, and then embed the reports you created in this application. And finally, there's also a way to get people actively informed. So there's no need that people actively go to Power BI, to Power App, to PowerBI.com and consume things in the report, in the workspace, or in the Power BI app. But you can also set up subscriptions and alerts. So subscriptions mean that you get like every Monday at 8 o'clock, you get some email with some updated report. And then alert is something where you have defined conditions where you can say that if a value changes, you want to get informed via Teams message or via an email. For example, it's very, very important that you get it right to identify the right distribution method. This is something they will ask you in the exam. And also in practice, of course, make sure that you make the report accessible for the people, and also give them things so they can make them actionable, right? Those reports. To show you actually how you create an app, I have prepared a demo here. So I have like this test workspace. It's a different workspace than Johan just created, because I'm a different tenant, and I have some artifacts there, right? And some people might just be overwhelmed by looking at those different elements of reports, of semantic model, and they have the same name. So this can be confusing for people just want to get the data, right? They don't care about Power BI, they don't care about workspaces. They need the information, right? And for that, we have this application. So if there's a Power BI application, if there's no application created in your Power BI workspace, it will tell you like create app. If I already created it, so it tells me update app. And if I click here, you can then have a name for this application, as this is my test workspace, and I just name it test app. There's also some colors and logos you can apply here. The most important part is the content. In the content, you can decide which part of your which content which reports, which dashboards are available, and you can also have links like to a SharePoint list or to an intranet or internet page. So basically, that's the content which is available in the application. But then you can distinguish by audience. So you can like have a definition where you tell my CEO, for example, the CEO only needs to see the dashboard, right? So I can hide this new section, I can hide the report, while the colleagues in the logistics department, maybe they have access to the report, but they don't care about the dashboard. So you have the full flexibility that you have just one application, one Power BI app per workspace, but you have then these different audiences to decide who can see what of that. This is what the application, the Power BI app, is about. And subscriptions in the report, as somebody who can even if you just can read the report, I don't want to change anything here. So I jump to my report here. Over the links up there, I can subscribe. And depending on my permission, if I'm somebody is not only reader, but I have more permissions, then I can also specify recipients. So I can subscribe my boss, my colleagues to that. If I'm only a reader, I can only subscribe myself, and then have a schedule defined here. If it's done on a daily basis, which time of the day referred to which time zone. This is really important, I guess, right? Could make a difference. And then I just save this, and then I get an email every like 5:30 my time, informs me about this report here. Jumping back to the slides. Let's see. Very good. And the other thing is that then you can endorse and automate the content. That's also important for the exam that you can distinguish between promoting and certifying something. Promoting means that you think this could be interesting for a wider audience. So promoted content will show up and is easily to find by your users. While certifying means that somebody, You can just certify a report, but the idea behind that is that you somebody else, not only the creator of the report, but somebody else, like a domain expert, some Q&A people, some data engineer looks at the report, really make sure this is like top-notch information. This is like clean data. This is like on the gold standard, right? It's not just random data. There's no mistake in there. All the formulas are fine. Then you can certify this, which gives them trust to the people. If they open up a certified report, they know that this is not just created by somebody, but like this was overlooked by a team of people which agree on this is something you can trust on. And this is also really important, right? If you build a solution, no matter what kind of tool you're using, it's really important that people can trust the report. So if they open up a report, see numbers, it's really important that they can trust the numbers. This would be like a really, really bad experience for the people, but also like for the whole Power BI project, if people discover then in production that there's one mistake and there's another mistake there. So really make sure that you build up this trust so people getting to use those reports.
Just jumping in there, it's not really an exam question, but it's important for real life scenarios. That's your organization make sure to have the proper method and route of certifying. Because if you let too many people certify, then you will lose trust again. It's something that has to be exclusive so that people really have faith in the certification mark.
Yeah, totally agree on that. Yeah, so be careful with this certification of trusted content. The other thing is that sometimes you will need a gateway because Power BI, the workspace Johan just created, is created in the Power BI service, which is hosted on one of the cloud data centers of Microsoft. So this is off-premises. This is not in-house where you might run your laptop or have access to some databases, which are hosted on-premises locally to your in your premises. So this means if I want to schedule, for example, schedule an automatic refresh of my report, the report needs to access some databases hosted on premises. And for some reason, of course, this is not just easy to do because I do not want to have everybody on the whole world access my databases through the internet. Of course, there will be firewalls. This is restricted. But sometimes, for example, to update the report, I need access for that. And this is what the gateway is for. So the gateway is a piece of software you can download from the Power BI page. You install it on your premises, so it is running locally. And this piece of software then you assign then access to your databases, to local files, whatever might be interesting for your reports. And this piece of software is also communicating with the Power BI service. So it's not when you install the gateway, it's not that you just open a big gateway to the internet again, but it's just a piece of software which communicates with the Power BI service and then pinging the Power service, do you need something from me? So it's not like that you open up from the outside, but the gateway is like from the inside asking, do you need something? And then the gateway makes sure to, for example, forward the SQL query or forward like the content of a CSV file to the Power BI service so the report can then be updated, for example, for the refresh. And there's also tools and reports pre-built which allow you to monitor and manage scheduled refreshes, right? So if you run a refresh, you get a list of like if this was successful or if there was a problem, and then you get more details about the problem there. In the exam, it says, what do we have here? Yeah, of course, I'll send to know how to set up the scheduled refresh, how to set up the gateway. This is also important in the exam to know about. Then we're coming back to Johan, right?
Yeah. So this next section will focus on security. So who can see what? How do you enforce that? So these are critical skills for the PL-300, and even more important, of course, in the real world scenarios where data privacy and compliance aren't things you can negotiate about. So we'll take a look at how you can control access to Power BI at the multiple levels, as I mentioned earlier. Workspace down to the objects. But first of all, we'll start with the role level, the workspace and roles, which again defines what users can do in the workspace. Then we'll move into item level access, where you can fine-tune permissions for specific reports, dashboards, and so on. Then we'll do how you can secure the semantic models, which are the data sets behind the reports. Then we'll take a look at some row level security. And finally, we talk about the sensitivity labels. And all these are essentials for passing an exam. But more importantly, of course, is that they will help you build your Power BI environment that is secure, compliant, and trusted. Also, DAX is important in exam. And as you hopefully know, DAX is the formula language in Power BI. So it allows you to create calculated columns, measures, and tables. And in real-world scenarios, DAX is what turns your numbers, your raw numbers, into KPIs, trends, and insights. And you will use DAX to perform aggregations, time intelligence, and conditional logic. And again, this is a critical skill both for the exam, but also for your day-to-day life as an analyst. So a hot tip is, of course, to practice your DAX, understand the difference between the row context and the filter context. And you will see most presenters talking about this will again go on and on again about the importance of understanding what is a row context and what is a filter context. So the DAX skills that are available on the exam are available to you. It sounds like it's a service, but it's what you will be faced with are single aggregation measures, use the calculate function, when to use it and when not, implement time intelligence measures, use basic statistical functions, semi-additive measures, and so forth, calculated tables, calculation groups. We won't have time to cover all of these today, but it's important that you look through that when you're preparing for the exam. Right, and then we have next slide. So yeah, I covered this a bit previously, but in Power BI, the workspace roles are what controls how users can interact with the workspace. So you have workspaces for collaboration with other developers. If you want to share content, you prefer to do that in an app. You will need to know about the 4 main roles on the exam. So you have your admin, member, contributor, and viewer. And you need to know what each of these allows. So for admin, of course, they can do anything within the workspace. Contributor and member can both do a lot more than you would normally think they would, because they can change and add and remove things of the items in the workspace. But of course, they cannot add security roles and so forth. Whereas a viewer are allowed to see the contents and items that are on the workspace. There's, of course, a 5th role, but they aren't mentioned. And that is, of course, the role that says no access. So if you have some security groups that are not a member, not a contributor, not a viewer, then the workspace will be invisible to them. And this is, again, it's not part of the exam, but it's something that you need to keep in mind, that you can actually then hide workspaces as well for people entirely. So admins manage everything. Yeah, I mentioned that already. Right, next slide. Sometimes you need more control than whatever that workspace role allows, which means that you can do an object level or an item level access. So I think let's stick with the item level as the name for this. Which means that you can share a specific data set or a specific report or a dashboard without giving access to the whole workspace. You can actually give people access to a semantic model without having them into the viewer role in the workspace, if you want to do that as well. So this is useful in some context, but it is also messy if you overuse it, because then you will need to start figuring out, okay, where have I put my access roles, who has access to what, and so forth. But for the exam, it is important to understand how you can apply the item level permissions and when it's appropriate. And if Marcus shows his screen to show the workspace he had earlier with some demos in them, he had some items there.
Mm-hmm. Can we jump
We
back?
can take a look at that. I think that's quicker than swapping over again.
Anna? Yes, this one.
Yeah. So you can then, you see there are some ellipses behind each and every of these objects.
Let's go.
There you go. And you have shared share access. And zoom in a bit further down. Yeah, manage permissions. If you go to that one. And this is, okay, it seems it's...
This was the semantic model, I think, not the report.
yeah,
right?
that's the semantic model. Let's go to...
Okay, I was at the report and not the semantic model. I think this was the thing here. It's manage permissions. This is what we're looking at, right?
Yes, that's what I was looking for. So here you can then start adding either Entra IDA groups or single person access. And you can grant access to several things. If you zoom in a bit, I think it's a bit small.
Of course.
So you can allow recipients to modify the dataset. You can allow them to share the semantic model in behind. You can allow them to build content on the semantic model so they can build their own reports. Or you can allow them to send an email notification. So this allows you to fine control whatever extra mechanisms you want on this. Sometimes you want to publish a semantic model that others can use for their self-service access. And then the build permission here is the important part. If you want them to be able to modify the data set, so you have more advanced users, you can do that as well. And then it's the first one. Otherwise, it's sharing with others or sharing the reports built on top of the semantic models, typically what you want people to do, or just send an email notification for that matter. All right, so switching back to the slides again. So yeah, make sure that you document whatever you do here, so it's easy to remember and verify if people get, I mean, if you're in a business that has severe audit restrictions on them, you need to make sure that if you get an audit, you can document whatever access level is needed. And then we can go on to the next one. So this is what we'll share. If we can click on the next one as well. It shows up the next image in the slides.
You're sharing again.
Wait,
it's your screen.
Yeah, it's so. When you share a report and you have the option to allow recipients to build content with the model associated, you get an image, so like something like this. It's again, it varies over time because whenever Microsoft changes some things, the slides or some of the layout, some of the images, or some of the menus will change how they look. Mm-hmm. But semantic models are the foundations of the Power BI reporting. They define the structure, the logic, and the relationship behind the data that reports and dashboards rely on. And they are, of course, also the compute engine that powers the reports and dashboards. And you can control who has access to these models by assigning the build permission. And this allows users to connect to the dataset and create their own reports without modifying the original model. As I showed you earlier, you can also allow people to modify the dataset in a separate permission. But it's important if you're building self-service BI that you use semantic models so that others can access them and can build their own content on it. And it is a way to make sure that the KPIs are the same all over the organization. If your sales manager wants to build his own report because he likes pie charts and you hate them, of course, he can do whatever he wants with that. But you make sure that A sale is the same KPI or the same calculation as is being made whenever the CEO sees it, or the marketing director, or somebody else. So that is a way to make sure that people can play around as they want, but at the same time you keep control of the numbers that are being shown. And again, for the PL-300 exam, you will need to understand how you can configure the dataset access and what that build permission enables. And of course, in the real world, having self-service BI scales a lot better than having just a few developers working their behinds off to make sure that all the reports are being made on time for people who basically could have done that for you instead. So it empowers users and it saves the BI team from overworking. You can also reuse semantic models across workspaces and makes it easier to have proper governance on it and manage updates centrally. Right, and then we are getting over to row-level security. And I don't know if you guys have heard about the Roche maxim. I mean, old people like me talked about this before, but Matthew Roche from Microsoft coined it as a maxim, and it's always cooler to say the Roche maxim than anything else. So do as much upstream as possible and only the necessary parts downstream. Which means that, yes, there is a row-level security in Power BI, there's a row-level security in SQL Server. And this is one of the points where it's possible to do it upstream, but I would still rather do it downstream unless you have a very complicated and huge model. And that is for the simple reason that, in my opinion, the row-level security feature in SQL Server, and then, of course, Azure SQL on that, is horribly slow for the most part. But you define a row-level security in your semantic model in DAX. You define the roles using DAX filters. And then you add your intra-security groups, or if you have to, separate persons individually to the roles that you have defined in your DAX filters. And this applies both in Power BI and in the service, the desktop and the service. And for the exam, it is important to understand how to assign users and groups to the row-level security roles. The exam will, of course, focus on the fact that you have row-level security in Power BI semantic models. I can't remember if there's something about using SQL Server for this, but again, I would recommend just focusing on how you do it in Power BI. Real-world deployment, of course, regular reviews of group memberships is something that you want to do anyways to make sure that things are compliant, but it's even more important when you're dealing with row-level security features. All right, on to the next one. And sensitivity labels are essential part of data governance. There are several ways, of course, of doing this. You have Purview enforces sensitivity labels, but we're talking about Power BI here, so let's look at the Power BI part. So you can apply sensitivity labels to classify and protect your Power BI content. That means that you can both stop users from exporting data, or you can allow them to export only summarized data. You can add sensitivity labels such as whatever corporate standard you have, whether it's internal or public or NDA or something like that. The definitions can be changed. But these, or maybe that's only for Purview. So it might be just confidential, internal, and public. Do you remember, Marcus? I'm a bit blank here.
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Let's just stick with confidential, internal, and public for now. It might be that it's possible to change it if you're using the Purview data loss prevention mechanisms. But these labels themselves can enforce restrictions when content is exported or shared. And it is important for the exam to know how to apply them and how to manage the sensitivity labels. And again, it is a key part of data governance. And when you're faced with audits and compliance issues, it is even more important that you make sure that you have a proper application of these sensitivity labels. All right, over to you, Marcus.
Yeah, over to me, Anna. Can you switch screen again? So there's also a way in Power BI to identify patterns and trends in your data. This is also part of today's talk. And there is like, there's visuals. There's like simpler ways of doing that. There's maybe complex things of doing that. But Power BI just managed to do those things for you, so you don't have to think about it. Is this really AI? Is this just a simple formula? Is this if then else statements? Not really important, but it's critical for the exam and of course also for your real world that you know how to use those features in your reports. So what we got there is like things to explore analysis, to do exploratory analysis, so you can discover trends, outliers, relationships in your data, and there's tools to help you with that. And I think I will jump over to my demo to actually show you that how this looks like in a real. Oh, it's not real. I mean, it's AdventureWorks, right? But it feels more real than a slide text. So what I've got here is AdventureWorks. I have a sales amount showing over the time. Yes, this is old data because it's AdventureWorks. And one of the features we got here is I also actually already showed you the trend line. So with the visualization tools, the analytics pane, you can turn on and off a trend line, which is a simple regression line, and you can't really change anything about the formula, but still it is there. And then you can also throw a forecast on that. So you can do a forecast. So it will then analyze the past, right? Trying to find patterns, trying to find a trend, and then make up a chart how the future could look like. Again, there's no way to change the algorithm. This is really hidden from you. But what we can do here is that we can tell what my data points. Is this like data points, or is this month or years, to help this algorithm to discover how the data is connected to each other. You can change the forecast length. So maybe as my data point is month, with half of a year, this is good enough. Then you can ignore the last like months in this case, if the data is not good enough or it's not finished, and then you can provide how the seasonality is, like 12-point seasonality. And the gray area, that's the confidence interval. That means, of course, a forecast, a time series forecast, will never be spot on. So if a forecast is spot on, I would be really curious about that. How can this happen? Because there's always like randomness in the data, randomness in the real world. But the confidence interval like shows us in which what's like the range of the expected value. And if I move my mouse cursor, I get this tooltip telling me the forecast for this data point is 5.1 million, but the upper bound and lower bound is between 6.9 and 3.2 million. And of course, the higher the confidence interval is, the wider this band is. This is how this confidence interval works. You can also like be more interactive by actually like finding a data point like this one. Looks really, really cool because like we had this steep increase of the data. So I might be curious about what's special between January and December around the new year 2013. What happened there? So I can right click here and then ask for, please analyze this data and explain me the increase. Again, an agnostic not Power BI, agnostic machine learning model is like thrown to the data. Of course, this model does not know anything about your business or industry or whatever. It's just looking at statistics, right? So some of the things showing up there might be, not very useful. Some of them might be useful. So usually you get a list of, I think, 8 or 9 suggestions here. And the first one here tells us like, here's the analysis for the 58% increase in sales amount between December and January, right? And that tells it found a connection, a statistic connection between the sales amount to date and first name. And of course, this is ridiculous, right? This doesn't give us any information. Like to hire more Renshits to increase our sales would be ridiculous, right? Obviously, there's no real world connection there. And why it's coming up with that is my own fault. My data model contains the first name. I didn't hide the first name. So of course, this model is looking at the first name and then coming up with some suggestion that the first name might be connected to the increase, who's responsible for the increase. To be clear, like for example, Linda, we have 5 Lindas. So even if Linda would be something which we would like to hire, doesn't mean anything because we have 5 Lindas. And like of course, 5 Lindas have more sales than maybe just 2 Garretts or just 1 Garrett. So we could ignore this, right? If I move a little bit down, we get a similar thing, which also made me thinking, because like it tells me the increase between the 2 million in December and the 4 million in January was due to a lot of sales were done by males. So this is the gender of our salespeople. So the males had a really tremendous increase here. They're responsible for most of the increase, right? While our female sales people did not. My first thought was, of course, yeah, if we have more males than females, of course, something like this would show up naturally, right? But luckily enough, we can like choose what kind of visualization we want to see here. And then we can see the reason might not be because we have like this biased gender through our employees, but in December, for example, 50%, over 50%, 52% of sales were done by females, while this skipped to the other way, right? 57% of sales were done by males in January. If this does mean something, take a look on that, right? Talk to the domain experts, but this could be something interesting. And if you think this is interesting, you can give feedback back to Microsoft by like clicking this thumbs up or thumbs down. This will not change the behavior of this analytics, but you can also like add this visual on your report. So you can then have it as a part of a report and then share the report with my colleagues and discuss these numbers with them, right? And for example, for this line, I can also have this analytic line and add some like constant line at like 50% here. So to really make sure this is what we're looking at, right? I have this red line, 50%, to make sure there's like something up and below of the 50 line. Another cool thing here, and this will sum up this demo, and then we're jumping back to the slides, is like this smart narrative. If I click here, oh no, I changed this. This was not what I wanted to do. I want to create a new one, smart narrative. And I do not want to use the Copilot for that. This visual will now look at the data shown at the screen and then coming up with a text, an English text, like sales amount trended up, resulting in a 122% increase between January 2011, that's the first data, and November 2013, which is the last data, right? And the cool thing is, it's summing up the thing, but this is not a static text, but this is smart, this is a narrative. So if I add some filter here, so for example, if I want to have my calendar year here as a filter in my visual, and then pick like only one of the years, make this a slicer, and then make it a list of values, and not this dynamic slicer here, but like the vertical list. And then I pick like 14 or 13, for example. And then the content of this will change, right? It will not tell me there's an 18% increase between January 2013. So filters are also applied to this analytics, which is a really, really cool thing. So this can start off you with a management summary, for example. So there's a lot of things like this ongoing in the visuals available in Power BI. You could also do groupings, analytics, clustering, and so on and so forth. And yeah, I did show you the forecast. There's also this key influencers visual available, which I didn't have time to demo, but take a look on that. And for the exam, it's really important that you also like know about like the statistics, so you know how to interpret an error bar or what confidence intervals are. And you can also apply this information then to conditional formatting to highlight outliers, for example. So this anomaly detection is just like a forecast applied to the past, right? If something is not expected, if it's an anomaly, it's not expected. So you have to find out what's expected, and expect is something which would be within the boundary of a forecast. This is what this does, right? It's applying the same model to the past. And with that, we're coming back to the actual exam. Any quick tips you can share, Johan, on the exam?
First of all, I just had to check while you were since I wasn't sure about the sensitivity labels, they are created in Purview. Even if you, no matter whatever you have in Power BI from before that, everything is started in Purview. So it's enabled there, and then you can name whatever you want, or the person who is in charge of naming the sensitivity labels, create them there, and then they are applied and available in Power BI.
There's a role for that in Purview, I think, right? Where you can create those labels. There's a role in Purview where which one can create those labels, who can apply them. So even if you can't see the data, you can then apply those labels to different artifacts in your
data. So that at least now I just make sure that we're telling the people who are watching this and prepping for the exam that sensitivity labels, they are called whatever your organization have decided to call them. If you don't see them, they are not enabled in your organization. But let's get back to the exam. So beyond the technical skills, you need to understand the exam format and practice with real scenarios. So use Microsoft Learn, use the practice assessments and the exam sandbox that are available to you there to get comfortable with the interface. And of course, soft skills like communication and stakeholder engagement are just as important as technical skills in real life. But it isn't as easy to test on an exam. So just have that in mind. And focus on understanding the why behind each task that you get a question on the exam, not just the how. So the mindset will help you when you read through the questions to understand what exactly are they asking for before you answer the question.
Here we go.
Yep, there we go. So scan that code, or go to aka.ms/PL300/prepare. That will have all the material that you need to get hands-on practice, study guides and resources, practice tests, the Learn course that you can go through. Of course, the exam preps, that all the recorded sessions from the previous 3 attempts as well are there. They're not there. They're on the Reactors channel, sorry. But go through the different YouTube channels, go through the material on Learn, and prepare. Do some sample projects. And if you are like me on a Mac, sorry, you cannot do Power BI Desktop. Better spin up an Azure trial and create a VM in that case. But for those people who are on Windows, you don't have any problem with this. But just get stuck in hands-on, read the material, and prepare.
Yeah, and again, we have a birthday party to celebrate, right? Don't miss all the opportunities we're having. As mentioned, there's a birthday party. That means scan this link and see what's happening out there with different contests and cool things. Again, there's the discount watcher. We get a 50% discount on the exam, either the PL-300, the DP-600, or the DP-700. Make sure to, I think you have to schedule the exam until August 31st if you want to do that. So be quick with that. Use the hot summer or the cold winter, wherever we're residing on this planet, to prepare for this exam. Get certified. There's also this data whiz contest running until July 16th, so 2 weeks from now. Still chance to attend this and be part of this contest. And finally, of course, hopefully to see all of you, many of you, in Vienna. Make sure to come by the community booth and let's have a chat about Power BI Live and all the exams and preparations you did maybe.
Now up for next week, we have the exam prep and Q&A. So feel free to join us there as well. You will also be able to join that that prep, as well as a repetition of today's topic at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And of course, as Marcus mentioned in the start, you have Spanish or Portuguese versions of the same content as well available to you. And you can find all the series on the URL on this slide. So again, aka.ms/pl300/live. And all sessions are also available on demand on Reactor web page within the next 24 to 48 hours.
And I think this is to wrap it up, right? That would be a slide for the Q&A, but the Q&A was already done by our fabulous moderators. So again, thank you for the moderators taking up the hard task, right? Talking to a lot of people. And that's it, Anna. I think you are done, Johan, right?
Yeah. Thank you very much for attending, everyone.
Back to Anna. Yeah, exactly.